So the steps to working out values of unknown angles when we've got parallel lines and a known is to first find the relationship. Okay, so if we're trying to find the value of angle B here, what is the relationship forming between B and our known angle? So you've got to go through the 5 different relationship types that we know. So the first one being corresponding. Are they sitting in the same position on a parallel line compared to the transversal? Which in this case they are. They're both on the right hand side and above the parallel line. So B has to equal 85 degrees. The second step, so once you've found the relationship, is to perform any calculations. Now we didn't have to for B, but say we wanted to find D. Okay, so what's the relationship between our known and D? Okay, well they're not co-interior. They're not corresponding because D is below the parallel and our known 85 is above it. They're not alternate because they're both on the same side, not opposite sides of the transversal line. They're not opposite each other, so they're not vertically opposite. They are on a straight line, but they're not on either. They're on the same side of our parallel lines. So the last one is co-interior. So this is a co-interior relationship. So D has to equal 180 minus 85, okay, which is 95 degrees. Okay, so we found the relationship and then we did whatever calculation we needed to. Okay, the last thing you might have to do, which you won't always have to do, but the last thing is find any additional angles. So if we wanted to find A, okay, so A and 85, there's no direct relationship that we can see when we go through our 5. Okay, they're not corresponding, they're not opposite each other, they're not co-interior, they're not alternate, they're not on a 180 degree or on a straight line together forming a 180 degree relationship. Okay, so we have to find another angle, another position that we can find that will be equal to A. Okay, so what other relationships that A have with other angles that would enable us to find of its value? So what other angles is A equal to? Well, we know A and D are equal because they're vertically opposite. No, A and E are equal because they're corresponding. So we've already found the value of D, its vertically opposite angle. So we can say A is equal to 95 because it's opposite to D, which we found earlier. So if we hadn't found D before, we would have to find its value, and then that would lead us to the value of A. Okay, so it's not always going to be a straight relationship. Sometimes you have to find other values. So I have 3 examples here, and we're going to go through how to actually find the values of the pronumerals on each of these 3 examples. So the first one here, we've got to find the value of A and the value of B. So we've got our 2 parallel lines are the horizontal ones, And our transversal lines, we've got two in this case. We've got this one here and this one here. So when you're looking at relationships, you've got to look at the parallel lines and one transversal only. Okay, we can't relate A and B because they're related to different transversal lines. So first of all, in this one, first of all for A, we've got to go through all our rules that we know to find out what the relationship between A and 38 degrees is. So first thing we can go through, are they corresponding? So are they in the same position? Well, no, they're not, because they're on opposite sides of the transversal. 2, they're not vertically opposite each other. The vertically opposite angle to 38 would be here, which is not A. So thirdly, we've got alternate angles, which that relationship is, they are alternate. A is on the opposite side of the transversal, and it sits above the parallel line, where 38 sits below it. So A would be 38 degrees, because it's an alternate angle. Okay. B, now it's not an alternate, because the alternate to 82 would be here. So when we go through our rules again, we can go through 1, corresponding. So 82 is the corresponding angle to B. So B equals 82 degrees because they're corresponding. Okay. So we found our two unknowns for the first example there. For example number 2 here, we've got 3 unknowns. Okay, our parallel lines in this case are horizontal, and we've got our upper and a lower transversal. So the first one we'll find is H. Now, H is in a similar relationship, or in exactly the same relationship, as A and 38 was. H is the alternate angle to 70, so they're going to be equal. Okay. Now, kind of feels like you need to relate H and G because they're vertically on the same parallel line, but they're on different transversal lines, so that means this line is cutting at a different angle to this line. So H and G are not related at all. We've got to look at the relationship between G and 55 degrees because they're on the same transversal line. Now, first of all, we can't really see any obvious relationships between G and 55. They're not corresponding, they're not alternate, they're not opposite, they're not co-interior. Okay, they're not on a straight line together. So what we're going to need to do is find the value of F first. So we're able to find the value of G. Because if you look at F and G together, G and F are equal because they're corresponding. Okay, they're both to the left of our parallel lines and above the transversal. So if we can find F, then we know what G is. Now F and G are on either side of the parallel line on the same transversal. So the relationship between them is they're going to add up to 180 degrees. So F is equal to 180 minus 55, okay, which is 125 degrees. Okay, so we know H is 70, G and F are the same, so this will also mean G equals 125 degrees. So we've solved problem number 2. Okay, so I've cleared our space here for problem number 3 because we're going to need a bit more working out. So we've got 2 parallel lines here, indicated by the arrows. We've got 2 transversal lines this time, and they cut each other, forming other relationships. Okay, so the nice obvious ones we can work out first are W and X. So we'll do W first. W is going to be equal to 180 minus 155, because W and 155 are together on this straight line, so 2 angles on a straight line have to add up to 180 degrees. So here, W has to equal 25 degrees. Now the next thing we can look at X. X and 85 are vertically opposite angles, so they're going to be equal. So X is 85 degrees. Now, when we look at Y is forming a co-interior relationship between the two parallel lines and this transversal line with the 155 degrees. So we know Y is going to be equal to 180 minus 155, okay, because these are co-interior. This was vertically opposite. And W was a supplementary. Okay. So Y is going to be equal to 25, the same as W. So far we've got W, X, Y, and we need to find Z. So Z and Y aren't related in terms of the parallel lines and the transversal, because Z is forming an angle between this transversal line and the parallel line, where Y is forming a relationship between this transversal line. But what we could do is we could work out what this angle, darker colour, we can work out what this angle is here, okay? And we can do that because this forms a small triangle, and we know that triangles have to add up to 180 degrees. Okay? So if we know, so I'm going to say this one, so our dot is equal to 180 minus the value of Y, which was 25, minus the value of X, which is 85, which is 70 degrees. So in here is 70 degrees. So we know Z is going to equal 180 minus 70, because Z and this angle we found inside our triangle are also supplementary. They're on they form 180 degrees because they're on a straight line here. Okay, so Z has to equal 110 degrees. So with our first two examples, it was quite straightforward. They had very straightforward relationships between an angle and the variable, where most of the angles we had to find in the third one here were, but we had to do a little bit of fiddling to find the last unknown Z. And that would be the case in quite a few questions that you come across. You might have to find angles that aren't listed as try to find them. Sometimes you just need to find additional ones to be able to get to find your unknown angle.